All right, guys, this is fun. We have the vehicles of the future and the guy who can insure them, so everything fits together quite well. Well, the good news is you guys were all just on stage, so we don't have to go through the boring boilerplate introductions on what you all do. So let's just dive into it. One thing I'm really curious about is what is one thing that each of you did early on in your business that set you up for success later on?
Happy to start. From our perspective, the one thing that I'm happy we did is to invest a lot in what we thought would be in demand in the future. So spending 3 years in R&D when you start a company is not something that's easy to do, right? You get pressure from all directions. But I'm glad that it was necessary in order to get what we wanted to get working. But if we didn't do it, we wouldn't have been ready for when the industry actually evolved in front of our eyes. Now, granted, it evolved 2 years later than we expected, but better late than never, and we were there ready. That's the first thing. Second thing is we invested a lot in manufacturing and bringing the knowledge in-house. So all the supply chain, quality control, line design, testers, everything we do in-house. We don't rely on our contract manufacturers and have manufacturing all throughout the world and 123 vendors. So when you have that kind of ability to scale, once things take place, you're able to capture demand right away.
From our side, I think it's coming back to what I was saying earlier. It's really human at the core. So the one thing we did is to really try to understand very deeply the problem that urban citizens were facing with regard to their mobility. So we have invested a lot. And I remember my investors in saying, why do you need to do research? But in fact, I wanted to make sure that we understand the problem, not just imagine the problem ourselves, but we understand it and deeply. So we did a lot of research, a lot of, I would say, work to really go with consumers in Shanghai, in Singapore, in San Francisco, in Paris, in Milan, to really understand what was the issue of urban citizens. So if I have to redo it, I will once again put human at the core and try to understand what is the problem we are trying to solve. Because I believe that whatever great technology, whatever great idea, if it doesn't serve a purpose or answer a fundamental need, it's useless.
For us at the Zebra, I think, of course we focused on product. Of course we put a lot of work on the technical side of things. But I think one of the things that really set us up later on was we thought very hard about brand from day one. In the insurance space, it was a terrible experience when you're as a consumer going through and putting information and having to go to different sites and getting all this spam. It was terrible. And so when we came in, even the name, the Zebra, insurance in black and white, we wanted to simplify it. We wanted to make it just as much of a pleasant experience as we could. So from day one, everything we did, whether it was product, whether it was people, whether it was interfacing with customers, on the carrier side, we thought about brand.
And Adam, let's stay with you because we just heard from you. You talked about how you didn't know really anything about founding a startup when you applied for your first incubator. Put English as the language that you write in. So on the flip side, what was one big mistake that you made early on?
Mistake, for me as a first-time founder, I put a lot of importance, I think, when I was interviewing folks initially and trying to build a team. Whatever it said on the resume, whatever it said on paper, I said, oh my God, look how smart they are. This is incredible. They're hired, And I think really you have to find people that you vibe well with, that the energy is there. And for me, one of the things I've learned is it's much more important to get a sense for how hard they work and how they think, and that versus what school they went to and maybe perhaps their experience.
I think we have the same experience, I think, because again, I'm coming back to human at the core, but the big mistake with this is people. And basically, we look at their competencies, we look at how bright they were, how the great studies they have done, how much competencies they have acquired. But one of the mistakes I did is not to look enough about their personalities. So whether or not they were really sharing the same belief, the same dreams, and whether or not their personalities will fit into what we are doing. So sometimes it's good to have people that have very high competencies, but now I shift in order to say I need people that actually understand what we are doing and feel exactly like we feel the way we want to solve urban mobility. So it changed totally your perspective on actually your recruitment. So I've totally shifted the way I'm recruiting.
So when you do that, is it about finding people with a very similar personality, you know, what called culture fit? Or is it more about people who believe in your why, the reason that you're doing
It's exactly that. Basically, we have to have the diversity, either the cultural diversity, the gender diversity, I would say also the age diversity. I don't believe in having only young people or only old people. So basically, diversity is at the core of Ujet. But at the same time, what we want to ensure is that they share the same dreams, that they share the same belief, that they share the same directions. At the end of the day, bringing their diversity by having a common directions that we share, it's actually very powerful.
I'd add to that too. I think it's really, really important that they. In a startup, it's a roller coaster, right? So there's gonna be amazing times, but things are gonna get tough. It's gonna happen when you're building a company. And so when you can't see that in a resume. How is this person gonna behave when things are not so clear, when things are uncertain, right? When there's adversity, how is it? And so I think that's incredibly important. Make sure they have a good heart, that they actually are in it, that they understand what you're growing, what you're building.
From my perspective, I think one of the first, when we did many mistakes, like anybody who stays alive, but maybe one of the first ones that was serious was to contract out much of the manufacturing, right? And what we build is not a wearable device or a sensor or something like this that is fairly commoditized, right? We build an electromechanical, fully custom thing that I learned are the only ones who are going to be able to know how to actually manufacture it at the quality we want and at the cost we want. So rather than work with the best and the greatest contract manufacturers and rely on them, impossible. If you do something that's like, imagine Tesla would subcontract its manufacturing. Yeah. It's ridiculous, right? And now we're not doing something as complicated, but it's not. It's closer to that than to a wearable. So that's one of the first things we did. We actually caught it within months and changed direction, but it was very risky.
So you guys talked a lot about sort of your mission, right, within your company, and how do you maintain that? How do you ensure that everyone that you're hiring, all the employees you're bringing on, especially when you're in that rapid growth stage, understand what your company is about and the ethos that's driving you?
I think it's one of the main challenges, because the more you grow and the more people you bring in, actually this is the moment where you could have a twist. And also the more partners you bring in, the more investors you bring in, and everybody wants to twist your core vision and your core idea and core direction a little bit. And sometimes 1 degree shift is actually totally changing the destination. And that's very dangerous. So if you think about a brand that everybody knows, Nespresso, it was a disaster at the beginning. Why? Because they shift their ideas in doing an espresso gourmet at home, and they shifted to go towards B2B because it was expensive, and it was a disaster. They came back to deliver an espresso gourmet experience at home, and then we see what this brand became. So I think the challenge is always to repeat, to sense check, to make sure that actually people again comes back to believing into. So that means you will feel it, you will see it, and if sometimes you have to take that tough decision because there is too much shift, then you have to take that decision, and also tough decision to say no to your investors, because very sometimes I have to say no.
I think it's all about choosing the right supporters for your company. If you bring on investors that have in mind an idea of micromanaging your company, it's going to be very hard. Because no matter what, a company has to both follow a very clear vision and tweak it with opportunism all the time, right? Otherwise you're stupid if you don't capture opportunities as they come. And you have to capture some and not others. And if your investors interfere too much, you're screwed. So it's select right from the get-go the people who trust in you and want you to run the company. Very important.
For us, I think it came down to communication and really, I think it does depend on your style, but really we found transparency was the way to go. If you're, completely agree with investors and whether it's internal, whether it's investors, you have to let everyone know the North Star. You have to articulate the vision, and you're definitely going to tweak it along the way. But if you're making strategy changes or you're doing different things in the product, I think letting everyone know the purpose of this. Look, here's how this is eventually going to help us get to this point. You may not see that now, but I think actually spending the time so that everyone understands understands why you're doing what you're doing. Even if they disagree with it, that's fine. But at least saying, hey, this is the purpose of this. I think that really helps keep folks.
Yep. Yeah, maybe one more thing to add here. There is so we opted in for sharing more internally, like in our group meetings, really sharing challenges, failures, successes, and that helped a lot, making sure that everybody understands where we're going. It sounds trivial, but it really helped. And the other thing is, if you think about hiring, there's probably three things that people care about mostly, right? It's what they need to survive, what's the sort of value that is, what are they signing up to from a values perspective, and then how do they want to be perceived, right? And so values are usually self-selective. People will, if they don't believe in your values, especially if you're a company in this kind of space, they're not going to come and you're not going to want them. But you have to respect to give people what they need to survive, and also respect the fact that you give them something that will help them be perceived in the way they want to be perceived, right? Even if you don't see it, you have to respect it. I think once you meet that, then you end up having people in-house that are happy with the mission, that feel comfortable, and they're going to follow you through those little turns that you need to take with less friction.
And when you talk about giving them what they need to survive, is sort of your ethos with hiring to just do that, right? Because it seems like there's two theories to startup hiring. One is that we have a great culture, we have an exciting work environment, so we can afford to pay, say, at the lower end of the middle of the salary band, right? There's the other theory, which is let's pay for the best talent out there. Which one do you subscribe to?
For me, everything else would be dogmas. It's a market that's so tough. United States, it's zero unemployment in tech. We are in Cambridge, which is Boston area is the center of robotics in the US. So everybody wants robotics engineers. We fight for the best. We want the A++. You pay market. You're not going to negotiate somebody 10% down. However, people often don't, if you offer market, it's rarely that they say, take me 20, 30% up because the market's tough. They like what you do. You offer a fair deal. I think it's usually you'll be fine. If you got something, mostly it's about whether the content is interesting from a values perspective.
What about for you guys?
I think we have a very principle. I have also a personal principle running this company is the principle of fairness. And again, having human at the core, they have a value. So for me, it's not about paying high or paying low. It's about giving the right value, because I think making a bet on whether you pay low because you have a very exciting environment and a purpose, I don't think it's the right bet. I think people deserve the right value for what they bring to the company, and they deserve to grow. They deserve to create also more value for all of us, and we need to share it. So it's, for me, part of what I call a shared responsibility to ensure that we are talking about value and not about pay.
Yeah, look, I think if you want good people, you have to pay for them, right? I mean, I think that's but I don't know if there's a way around that. If you find out, let me know. But I think culture is we always put a lot of emphasis on culture. We're in Austin, Texas. We've I think 3-4 years in a row now have got best places to work, and people find us through that. People are moving to the city, and they go online, and we're able to. And so I think it does make a difference when you have people that are excited about what you're doing, and you get the smartest, most talented people all working. Talented people want to be around other talented people, and so I think that culture that you build really makes a difference and allows you to continue to recruit A players.
So we only have a couple minutes left, but Ten, I want you guys to each take a second to think of one moment when you're starting out where you felt like, oh crap, this is going to fail. Sort of your lowest moment, and how did you get past that?
Difficult question.
No, look, it's a tough question, but no, actually, I can think of one easily. If I'm talking about, you're asking the first one. So this is my first company. Now it's 6 years old, almost 5.5. But at the beginning, we were developing a product. We're about to announce that we're in total stealth mode. We're not talking to anybody about what we do. And all of a sudden, I'm getting text messages. I'm about to go into a Broadway show with my dad in New York. I'm getting text messages from people saying, "Congrats, you launched." And I'm like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" Turned out we had a copycat, and so I was freaked out at the beginning. Since then, you get used to competition, right? And you work with it, and you're actually happy that you're in a meaningful space. But the first time I saw this, especially because it was a direct copy, I was afraid it failed. What we do is hard to do, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, it was no problem, but it scared me very much.
And in fact, the story is I used to be a high competition athlete. So for me, failures is part of the learning process to get where you want to get. So I'm not scared about failure or don't feel panicked about failure. For me, it's just one little jump further that we need to go through. So I don't think we can visualize, and I used to visualize that as I would say high competition athlete. You don't visualize a failure. You can recognize it when it happens, but you never visualize it. So what you visualize is basically where you want to go, how you want to go there, and all what happened in between are that incidents, but they are not changing your path.
I think, look, if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, there's so many things along the way that you want to throw in the towel and this is it. There's no way I can come back from this. But I think just using that as fuel and understanding it's really hard to build cool companies. I mean, it's difficult.
All right, guys, well, we're out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your insights and your stories.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll see you again soon.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.